Hi, it's Christine and Mary Beth from the Easton Library, and we are hosting our Community Conversations Career Conversations, sorry. And we're speaking with today, Daken Vanderburg, and Daken is the Chief Investment Officer and the Head of Investment Management at Mass Mutual. Daken, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine, and thanks, Mary Beth. Thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So aside from the official titles, the short version is I oversee a large team that oversees investing. So we have clients and investors of ours that come through the Mass Mutual network. It's a huge organization. I haven't been there for that long, but it's a huge organization. And so we oversee basically the investing process, the oversight of those investments. We have a lot of conversations with clients to help them understand what we're doing. And we ultimately try to help them achieve their goals, ultimately, is really what we're trying to do at the end of the day.
Wow.
And how long have you been doing this job?
So I've always been in this world, but this role I took in November of last year, and then it expanded even further in the early part of this year as well. And so now I oversee quite a large team. Prior to that, I ran my own firm for about 6 years in the hedge fund world. And then prior to that, I was down the street at Bridgewater Associates, which is in Westport, for a number of years as well. So always within this world of investment and alternatives and hedge funds and entrepreneurialism. This is the largest company I've ever been involved with. It's a much more corporate entity, but yeah, so I've been doing this in many ways for, I guess, now 20 plus years or so.
Wow.
So it's not a second career for you?
It is not a second career. No, I have been locked on this track for a while now.
Yeah.
Were you
interested
in this when you were in high school? Or as a student, a younger student, was this kind of where you saw yourself going? Or
that's a good question. So I was always interested in the strategy and understanding how stock markets worked. I came from a lower middle class is the way I describe it, family, and so we never had a lot of wealth. We never had a lot of savings. We had incredible lives. We lived incredible experiences, but we all react to some extent to our upbringing, right? And in large part how we choose roles sometimes. And so I think from my perspective, it was, I always wanted to figure out how to save money, how to invest money, what that whole world looked like. So I was always interested in that space of it. When I first went into undergrad, I started out at UCLA, and I looked at oceanography, I looked at pre-med, I looked at a couple different spaces, but ultimately kind of came back to the more quantitative or mathematical part of investing. And I've done that really since then, after, like I said, 20 plus years or so.
Wow, that's really something. So did you
ever
look back and think, wow, I should have done oceanography? Or are you happy that you?
There are moments of frustration. There is no perfect path. There's no clear road. We run into these roadblocks, and we always sort of reassess what we've done and whether or not it still makes sense. But I found ways of getting some of those interesting exposures in other ways. So I sail a lot, for example. And so some of the things that I've loved to do, I found in other ways. It's been a remarkable journey so far. Lots of failures, some successes, of course, also. But that path I really enjoyed. I find it not only fulfilling, but lots of really, really interesting problems and questions. Lots of things that just continue to struggle with, and understanding why humans make the decisions that we make, and also it can be great from a financial perspective as well. It wasn't the motivation necessarily, but that can be good as well in this space.
That's wonderful. Yeah, really great.
What are the educational requirements for your job?
Yeah, so I describe it in a couple different ways. To get into investing generally, anyone can do it. In fact, everyone should do it. So whether it's a professional avocation or not, it's just a good way to ultimately meet your financial goals. And we all, regardless of what we want to do with our lives, have financial goals. So there is no requirement from that perspective. There are really good organizations that can help anyone invest. Places like Vanguard or Charles Schwab, and good low cost places can do those types of things. In terms of the job itself or the role itself, there's a couple of different categories. So there's sort of the base fundamental knowledge. And so my undergrad degree was in finance and international business. I also studied financial engineering for graduate work. I studied statistics for graduate work, and I also did my MBA at MIT. And all of those were sort of building this, continual process of learning and knowledge that just helps when you continue to go down a path. So good foundational knowledge for this is important, understanding how markets work and how sometimes the math behind all of this works or how economies work, that's important. And there are a couple of sort of regulatory components that once you get into that path, because we're overseen by different government organizations, you need to have licenses and things, but that's a separate issue and that can be sorted out later. It's really having an interest in the space is really important, and then that drives to the learning, which drives then to some of the degrees, which can drive sort of further that continuance of learning.
Right. Wow. That sounds great. I mean, and just to follow and keep learning in your career as well. Just it continues, right?
It's all I do, honestly. Every single day, it's really almost all I do. I mean, it's I'm at the library a lot, as you both may know. I'm reading constantly, learning about the way the world works and how it's changed and how everything has evolved on a daily basis, including 2 days ago with the elections, learning why humans made the decisions they did and going through that process. There's an economic question to that, how it's going to change policies. I mean, that really is a continual learning space, which is why I've loved markets so much. It really is a fascinating space because it constantly challenges us to think about how the world has evolved and what are we missing and not understanding, and how the human dynamics play into that ultimately.
Wow. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean,
it's so interesting. You're telling us about all these really unique aspects of a job that I think a lot of us maybe wouldn't understand. We hear finance and we think, oh, you're just doing numbers all day, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, so much of my job, including the part of running a large team, is really just about problem solving. It's about trying to find clever ways to come up with solutions to ultimately to solve problems. Really, that's what it comes down to. So, for example, we have clients who will come to us, and it may be a very wealthy client. It may be someone who was a plumber for 30 years, and this is their entire retirement nest egg. And so we have to figure out exactly how we can help them meet their goals, or how do they meet their goals of leaving their wealth to their children, or how do they retire, or those types of questions at one end of the spectrum. Or for a large institution, how do we continue? For example, foundation or an endowment will come to us and it's supporting a university. How do they do more research with the money they have? We can help them try to solve those problems. So we're doing that constantly. We are really trying to solve problems more than anything. And then in terms of the actual investing itself, it's trying to understand how economies are evolving, how demographics are changing, how are people changing in their decision making, and trying to essentially put our heads into behavioral pieces of that to help try to make good decisions over the long run. So there definitely is a numbers and math piece to this, but that part's kind of easy. It's understanding humans that's the hard part of it all, and that's the part that's sort of fun, honestly.
Yeah.
It sounds creative too. That also is another aspect that maybe not everyone would expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the best investors in the world have been sort of eccentric, creative individuals that come at the problems with a totally different lens than what others have come at it. And so that part's really fun. That part's really a lot of fun, actually. It keeps it very interesting on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I mean, I love hearing about these ideas that I would have never put together with that career. It's so interesting.
Yeah, agreed. I wouldn't have made those connections. So that's great.
Sounds very boring from that title, doesn't it?
No, when I think of finance, yes, because just as Christine said, I think the importance of it, of course, and the knowledge, we should all have that knowledge, but I didn't think of all these other aspects.
Yeah. And honestly, I use a lot of frameworks. One of them is purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And the reason I like that framework for thinking about my job or any job is if we as humans can find purpose in what we do, if we have the autonomy to follow that path, and then we love as humans to build our knowledge. So if we can gain mastery of whatever topic it is. So with investing, the piece I love is the purpose is I'm helping these individuals, individual families or endowments or large organizations that creates the purpose that I think is so fun and so exciting. The autonomy is on a daily basis. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do and how do I achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. And I have a very large set of resources to do so, but it really comes down to, can I be creative and humble enough to solve those problems? And then mastery is that continual learning, trying to continue to find new ways of learning. So the economies and markets and humans interaction or intersection creates a perfect landscape, essentially, or field for continuing to humble me, but also just providing fodder for me learning and thinking about new problems and such. So it's a really fun space to be involved with.
Oh, I love that. It's such a great way to look at a career. It's fantastic.
Great, good.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is going to be, I mean, eye-opening and really interesting for anyone who's trying to decide what they want to do as they grow up, and if they even had an inkling of an interest in finance or not. I mean, it's great. It's wonderful.
Great. And we also, by the way, I will mention, we are constantly looking for interns. So we do hire folks constantly. So I don't know how to connect that pipe, but if folks are interested, I'm happy to reach out, or they can reach out, and I'm happy to try to connect them to the right dots once they get a little further down the path, if they are interested in the space or just have more questions. So we can sort that out afterwards. But.
How wonderful.
Yeah, very wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daken, for talking to us.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. Great to speak with you both. And let me know if I have any other follow-ups or other questions. We can go from there.
Thank you. Well,
Sounds
thank you for joining us. And I hope this was really useful to everyone watching.
Sounds great. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.